Larry Smith, Mike Kegley, Brad Sturdy, glad you're here with us. And we are joined once again here by the football writer and analyst for IlliniGuys.com, Matt Stevens is joining us. Matt, we are now just a couple of weeks away from kickoff. Boy, I know that coaches always keep things close to the vest, and so we still count on you to try to parse through whatever you can of all the different conversations you have with different the coaches and even if players and whatnot. 2 weeks out right now, and you're a veteran at this. How close, by the way, is Illinois ready for the season opener against EIU?
Larry, it's funny you mentioned that because we talked to Aaron Henry earlier this week, and one of the things he mentioned was an old coach cliche, but I think this is more honesty than he probably wanted to admit, which is we're tired of hitting each other. And I really think we're going to start to see a discussion about how long preseason training camp is, because you hear so many coaches starting to go to the quote unquote NFL model. And I don't think that a lot of coaches will be too bent out of shape if you say take a week away from them and say, hey, you got one less week to do this in. Coaches won't voluntarily just sit out a week, like if you give them the time. But if you do something in the coaches clinic and you do something in the competition committee that says, hey, we're going to take a week away from you, I think a lot of coaches, and we're going to take that week away in August in the preseason. I think a lot of coaches will look at that and say, well, that's one less week that we can probably get somebody hurt before the season starts. And I think that Aaron Henry kind of gave us an indication of we're kind of ready to play a football game. We'll get ready for EIU and probably get ready for Kansas, in these next couple of weeks in terms of walkthroughs, in terms of, this past week, they had their final scrimmage under the lights at Memorial Stadium. So that kind of gets everything out of the way of, who we're going to use going into the season. But as we all know, it's a 4-month journey, and guys who are third on the depth chart right now, if you're a young player, you could be called upon in the middle of October. So they're really, really, after what happened with Cole Rusk in the first week, they're really, really kind of paranoid right now about trying to get guys healthy to the finish line. And the finish line right now is August 29th when they open up against Eastern Illinois. And I think that you're seeing a lot of that across the country. You heard Lane Kiffin talk about we're not even going to do anything more than thud until the first week of the season, until the first game of the season. And I think there's the quote unquote NFL model is what's being used all across the country. And I think it's being used a little bit at the University of Illinois inside Memorial Stadium because they're just so rightfully paranoid about injuries popping up before the season even starts.
Matt, is you mentioned the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Can they overcome injuries that they've had to Cole Rusk, to whatever they've had so far? And what is the outside of him? What's the other injuries that are really kind of you feel like are issues?
Well, I think an issue would be if like say Josh Kreutz isn't ready for week 2 against Kansas, but all indications are he will be. The center position is still pretty stable. What it's allowed him to do, Brad, is that it's allowed him to kind of figure out, knock on wood, if something were to happen to Kreutz, like it happened with Doug Kramer and Bielema's first year, what do we do at center? And how does that affect the other 4 spots? They figured out that Kevin Winkington's prepared to do that in more than an emergency situation. They have figured out that Brandon Henderson can maybe play all 5 offensive line positions, that guard, center, and tackle, because they've repped him there all throughout this month. So I think that that's pretty solid. I think they thought going into the season that Tanner Arkin and Henry Boyer were going to be pretty good at the tight end spot. Not saying that they're not, looking at the loss of Cole Rusk as what it is, a loss. I have my clues on the idea that I've been texting back and forth with people that, my fear with Cole Rusk was that, if I'm Barry Lunney, I'm telegraphing what I'm doing in terms of play calling based off the tight end that's on the field, because Cole had really needed to improve his inline blocking, because everything that he does, going out wide and basically being quote unquote Travis Kelce or George Kittle is pretty fantastic. But his inline blocking when Illinois wants to run the football isn't as solid as when you can put Tanner Arkin and Henry Boyer on the field. Well, I think they feel like they have talented tight ends now, and they're not as tipping their hand anymore in their play calling based on who that is. And I do think that you're going to see more quote unquote 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers, a running back, and 1 tight end formationally. And I don't think that precludes Illinois from running the football. Everything else seems to be like, hey, we're working minor injuries until we get to the opener and everybody's supposed to be active. Donovan Leary has been inactive for a couple of practices. I don't imagine he's going to be, asked to do much in the scrimmage. I don't think he's going to be asked to do much for the next couple of days. What it's allowed in that regard is that he has the same amount of game experience at Illinois as Kirkland Mouche, who's the third string quarterback. He has the same amount of game experience as Trey Petty, who's now been able to take third string reps and maybe even second team reps as a true freshman. They do feel like Donovan Leary, he's on the exercise bike and he's watching practice, and I don't see anything physically on him from a medical device standpoint. So I don't think that he would be precluded from being active for the opener. So the backup quarterback spot's pretty active, and they've been able to keep every one of their running backs except for Jordan Anderson, who's still dealing with soft tissue stuff. Like, they've been able to keep the top 3 running backs in their stable pretty healthy, even throughout this fall camp where they've been pretty physical. So, knock on wood, I think Brett Bielema has had a pretty healthy fall camp.
Now that you're an expert on watching football teams stretch, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Is it going to be Josh McCray or Caden Fagan who's the number 1 running back, or will we see a thunder backfield?
Yes. If you ask me, like, is that person going to have a significant impact at the tailback position? The answer is yes. Brett Bielema said at Media Day, we don't have a 1A. We don't have a Chase Brown. We have a 1B. We have a 1C. We have a 1D. We have a 1E. He's not wrong. I do think that there's going to be a role for every one of those running backs. I like the idea of using Josh McCray in the 4-minute offense when you need to close out a game. I like giving Caden Fagan early touches because I think athletically he's the most gifted person in that room, which is a really, really talented room. The fastest guy in the room might be Aiden Laufrey, who's also doing special team stuff. I feel like the toughest and maybe most physically imposing guy in the room when he's healthy, and if and when he's ever healthy, is Jordan Anderson. And the guy that they're really, really excited about from an athletic gifted standpoint is Khalil Valentine, the true freshman from Arizona. I will say right now, I don't think Khalil Valentine is in their plans for 2024. But guess what, guys? Caden Fagan wasn't in their plans for 2024. And in the middle of October, he's starting a game at Maryland, getting 20 carries and, being asked to be the bell cow tailback in a Big Ten game on the road in which they won. So I wrote a story this week on IlliniGuys that neither Thad Ward, the assistant who has been a running back coach for over 20 years, and Brett Bielema, who's entering his 16th year as a head coach at the Power 5 level, had ever seen anything that would happen to the running back room. But I do think they feel like they have one of the most talented stables depth-wise, and they feel like, is Josh McCray, if he can maintain health, going to have an impact in this season? Yes, I do. The first ever recruit of the Brett Bielema era here at Champaign-Urbana is still somebody that he still feels has a lot of gas left in that tank and a lot of athletic ability and to potentially be a bell cow tailback at Illinois. I just don't feel like they have a Doak Walker candidate like they had in Chase Brown, but that doesn't mean you can't be in the top half of the league in rushing, and that's been the goal since they opened up fall camp.
Talking with Matt Stevens, IlliniGuys.com, football writer and analyst. When you talk running backs, of course, you talk about the all-time greatest going back 100 years in Red Grange. A lot of things planned this season with Memorial Stadium and shifting gears just a little bit here. And obviously the mid-October game bringing Michigan in 100 years and a day from when Red Grange went off in the Wolverines. I guess I'm sure the players don't care much about this. I mean, some may not even know who Red Grange is. They haven't walked over that side of the stadium and seen the statue. But around the program, do you feel a special buzz about this year and the things that they're planning around the games this fall?
They may not know who Red Grange was, other except for the guy that's got the statue in front of Memorial Stadium. They know who Caden Fagan was, who modeled the uniforms, and they thought it looked really cool. Guys, Illinois did a uniform thing and nobody bitched or complained about it. At the end of the day, they think the helmets look really freaking cool.
They do.
They think the jerseys look pretty tight, and they're excited about wearing both of them against the defending national champs. So kudos to Illinois marketing. They pulled off a jersey and a helmet thing, and everybody thinks it's pretty spectacular, including their beat reporter for Illini guys, because they rolled them out there, and I thought, wow, that's pretty spot on. That's pretty cool. So I know when Caden kind of was standing in the locker room and they kind of revealed it to the guys right before practice, they all thought he looked pretty cool. So they're excited about it. I think I think the kids are really going to get a kick out of it. More importantly, I know you're probably going to talk to Kedrick Prince about this, or, our recruiting guy at Illini Guys, but they're prepared to have a lot of visitors for that game, in terms of recruiting, and I think it's going to have a high impact on what they were trying to do for specifically in the 2026 and 2027 recruiting classes.
Real quick, by the way, if you get a chance, FindingIllini.com put out a great video with the guy who painted all those helmets to look like they're leather. It is 3 minutes worth your time. It is a really cool process. And I think it'll be a very special day, obviously, at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah,
Sometimes I
for a
look
guy
like
that
I'm
is
leather,
in
too.
a town of nowhere, Nebraska,
Yeah.
he did a really cool job. He did a
Yeah.
really, really cool job. And apparently there's only like 2 guys in the country that do it. So they were going to have to go to nowhere, Nebraska, or, some far off place out west. And so they had 2 options. And the guy that did it, again, the player, Brett Bielema will be the first one to tell you the players are the most important thing. They think they think the helmet is really cool. They think the uniform is really cool. And more importantly, when your players think it's really, really cool, guess what you can do? And if you're trying to get NIL money, they're going to sell those jerseys and they're going to sell those helmets to potential people at auction. And I think they're going to go for a pretty hefty price.
I'm in. I'll bid on it too. So that's good. So Matt, my question for that game is, will that guy who runs for the Jimmy John subs, is he eligible to play that game? Because they could use that speed maybe.
I was afraid your question was going to be like I was going to be the other guy because I got nothing for him. No, but I do think. Look, I think if the joke is that Brett Bielema felt like they needed more speed, they went out and got it this offseason. A lot of the guys that they went and got in the transfer portal were either A, more athletic, or B, more speed. Terrence Brooks is one of the fastest guys on the team. Torrey Cox, I think, is the fastest guy on the team. Those are 2 defensive backs that they brought in from the portal. Brett Bielema is not exactly trying to, win weightlifting contests with everybody that he's bringing in from the portal. They've brought in a lot of speed. I think Zachary Franklin is really, really quietly one of the fastest guys that they could put out in the slot. I'm really, really interested in what Illinois is going to do at wide receiver, just because of the amount of depth that they have there. But it's unproven depth. And so, except for Zachary Franklin or maybe Pat Bryant, it's unproven depth. So what they do there and what they do in the slot, whether they put Franklin there or they put like a Hank Beatty when he gets back healthy, or they do a Kanari Wilcher, who also might be one of the fastest guys on the team. It'll be interesting to see, but I think they're going to have it figured out before Kansas rolls in on September 7th.
What do you think the ceiling is for this offense, Matt? Because this offense, with offensive line being deep and the talent that they've got around, this looks like it could be a good offense in the Big Ten.
Well, this is fake wood, so let me knock on the fake wood here. If the offensive line stays healthy, I think they can be really, really good. I think that they can run the football the way they want to. I think that they can be nasty, and I think that they have the potential to put out 3 guys that I think are either A, 4-star recruits in Pat Bryant, Zachary Franklin, and Malik Elzy at wide receiver, and have 4-star quarterback in Luke Altmaier. Now, everybody stays healthy, Illinois can put up points, and Illinois can also keep the ball away from their defense, having to be on the field, which is going to be a key. I think that they can do whatever they want. Barry Lunny's going to have a lot of options. Does that mean Illinois is going to be Oregon? No. But does that mean Illinois can win a lot of games with their offense? Yeah. And I think that that's part of the goal. I mean, again, when you look at it from the offensive line perspective of what they were able to do in the portal, and then you look at the idea that Luke Altmaier's never had a returning offensive coordinator in his 4 years of college football. This is the first year. I think it could be interesting. And then you look at the depth that they have at the running back position. And again, since they opened up in late July and said, "Hey, we want to run the football," you look at the depth they have at that room, and it's pretty impressive. And so I think whether or not they want to be a high flying offense is probably not their priority. Trying to get W's and play complementary football is definitely something I think they can do in 2024.
Matthew Stevens, I have 2 words for you, my friend. Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's a big one. It's a big one.
Milestone. Not gonna say which one it is, you 30-year-old, but we appreciate your time as always. Hopefully you eat lots of cake this weekend, and have Beelam have a spring for a cake for you. I mean, it's the least he could do.
Thank you. I'll let him know.
That'll happen.
I'm sure that's also high on his priority list.
I'm sure even as we speak, he's instructing the Illini Bakery in how to get you a good cake.
He gave me an open practice, guys, on Saturday. I think that was a form of his birthday gift, like my birthday gift. All right, let's just be honest about it.
Exactly. I could see him. Listen, guys, Matt Stevens, Illini guys. Yeah, his birthday's coming up this weekend. Let's get him a cake. Let's do a cake. All right. No, seriously, happy birthday.
And an open practice. And
Larry, I think we might want to keep this quiet because you might want to throw the cake in my face. So that too. Like,
there's some days he may want to do that. Hopefully, this is not one of them.
Might be a fundraising line, guys.
That's right.
We're gonna oh great, like now I get to be the NIL fundraiser in like a dunk tank, like that would be great.
Do your part for the program, Matt. We appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks as always, and again, congrats. We'll talk with you next week.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
All right, take care. We've got more to come right here.